Hashem, I want to focus today on the most famous pasuk in Parashas Balak. What's the most famous pasuk? You know the most famous pasuk? The first words that we say every morning when we begin our davening, which are Ma Tovu Alecha Yaakov. That this is one of the six letters that have to begin in Amud of the Torah. The one of the Amudim of the Torah has to begin with the letter Mem, Ma Tovu. It's one of the five Amudim that don't begin with a Vav. So now let's look at the pasuk with the Rashi. Hold on. So what I was saying is that, hold on, that there's something called Bikashimo, Beis Yud Hey Shin Men Vav, that there are six columns that have to begin with those letters. With six columns of the Torah, one begins with the Beis, that's the Beis of Bereshis, then the Yud of Yehuda and the Bracha of Yehuda, then forgot the Hey, but it's also at the end. It's at the beginning of Shemos. Then the Shin of Seir and Yom Kippur, and then the Mem of Matovu, and then there's a Vav that has to begin in column in Hazinu. But every other column in the Torah, some Torahs have 248, some have 245, begins with the letter Vav. Every other column of the Torah begins with the letter Vav. So that's and so Matovu is one of the ones that don't begin with one of the five. Okay, hold on one second. Hold on, let me find the pasuk here. Okay. Okay. So it's in chapter 24, pasuk Hey. We'll begin in the beginning of the parak. This was already twice he's tried to curse Bnei Yisrael and it's come out with the bracha. And now in chapter 24, verse 1, it says, Vayar Balak, Vayar Bilam Kitov Beinei Hashem Varechas Yisrael. And Bilam saw that it was good in the eyes of God to bless the Jewish people. Lo alach kapam bepam lekra nechashim. And he did not go this time towards Nichush's divination. Ayashet al midbar panav, and he set his face toward the midbar. What does Rashi say here? Ayar Bilam kitov Bilam saw that it was good. Amar eni tzarech of dok b'kadosh baruch hu ki lo yachpotz l'kolam. He says by this time he's realized that there's no point even asking God because God does not want to curse the Jewish people. He didn't go like he did the first two times where he went and he asked the Jewish people, he asked God, can he curse them? And God said, no, bless them. The cross in Hashem, Rashi says, to divine. Why yikara Hashem l'kraso kirtzo? No, maybe God would, the first two times he said, maybe God will do according to his will. But Askir Avanosem, Kola Alaskarot Avanosem Tachol. He said he wants to curse, but he doesn't want to curse them. Meaning to say that he thought he could circumvent God's wishes by talking about their sins, and then God will put a curse on their sins. And he set his face towards the wilderness. And Rashi says, Kitar Gumo. What does the Targum here say? The Targum says here, the Targum says, Vishavi l'kabel egla t'avodu Yisrael b'midbar ha'poli, that he was reminding God about the sin of the golden calf, meaning to say he set his face towards the calf which the Bnei Israel made in the wilderness. Meaning to say he said, let's focus on their sins, and that's what will cause God's wrath to come upon them. So he picked up his eyes. Why did he pick up his eyes? Rashi says, Bikesh lachnis behem ayin ra. He wanted to stick an evil eye upon them. He said, he picked up his eye to rest his eye upon them, to curse them. Rashi says, Shalosh midosav. Bilam has three character traits. Ayin Ra'ah, the evil eye, Ruach Gavoah, a conceited spirit, V'nefesh Rechava, and greed, Hamurim Lamal, which were spoken above. V'ayar Yisrael Shochem L'Shvatav, and he saw the Jewish people dwelling, each by their tribes, V'atiyah Ruach Hokim. And when that happened, he had the Spirit of God come upon him. Rashi says, he saw Israel dwelling by their tribes, he saw each and every tribe dwelling by itself, and they were not mixed together. He saw each tribe was dwelling by itself, and he saw that they had distinct tribes, and that was a good thing. It wasn't the melting pot, because every tribe was by themselves. And he saw also that exactly, Jeffrey. He saw the entrances to each tent was not aligned with each other, so that nobody could look into each other's tent. We'll get to that. The right to privacy. Right, people couldn't see, it was private. Is
it in Hilchot Shchenim or in Hilchot Nezikin of Rambam?
Went through like this.
So we'll see it in the Gemara in Sanhedrin, but we'll look at it in a moment. But first of all, let's first look at the Rashis. So the Spirit of God came upon him, so he couldn't curse them. So we're still not up to that verse. He opened up his parable. Vayomer Neum Bilam beno Beor. The Bilam, the son of Beor, speaks. Neum Gever Shesuma Ayin. Let the man who is with a pierced eye speak. Rashi says, Beno Beor, the son of Beor. The word Beno here is Lamaino Mayim, like in a fountain of water, meaning to say, Midrash Agadah, Shneim Ayu Gedolim Me'avosem. Both Bilam and Balak were greater than their fathers. Balak Beno Tzipor. Balak, whose son is Tzipor. The word Balak means his son is Tzipor. That's the implication of Balak and Tzipor. Let's see. Because it says Adai Beno Tzipor. Right, that's based upon the verse, the usage earlier to tell us that Balak was greater than Tzipor. Aviv benohu b'malchus, that Balak's father is his son, meaning to say that his father, Tzipor, was inferior to Balak in kingship. Ubilam gadol me'aviv b'nevios, and Bilam was greater than his father in prophecy. Maneh ben pirasaya, he was a full portion, the son of a half a portion. Okay, and what does it mean, Chesuma ayin? What does it mean that Bilam had a pierced eye? Eino nikuva, his eye was punctured. Rashi says, Umutzei tlachutz, and his eye was taken out. V'chor shala nira patuach, his socket looked open. Lashon mishnehu, kidei sheyishtom v'yistov v'yigov. Oh yeah, you see, here things are looking real tight tonight, so maybe if you could hang around 10 minutes, it'll be good. Thank you. So, the rabbi said, why was he called Shesuma Ayin, the one with the pierced eye? Mispar et Rova Yisrael, because Bilam said we're going to count the matings of Israel. Shakadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Umone Revioten She Yisrael Matai Tavotipa Shanoat Atzadik Mena, because he saw that God was counting the matings of the Jewish people and saying, "Oh, let me see when there'll be a drop that will cause a tzaddik to be born." Amar Bo, he said in his heart, Mishu Kadosh, the one who is holy, Umisharatav Kadosh, and whose servants are holy, is looking at these things. He was making fun of God. That's why Bilam became blind, because he was making fun of God, because God was spending his time peering at the matings of the Jewish people to figure out which one the tzaddik would come from. But some say that Shesuma Ayin, Rashi says, Yesh Mefarshim Shesuma Ayin Petuach Ayin. That means that his eyes opened. Moshe Tirgum Onkelos, like Onkelos explained it, that he sees well. Baal Sha'amar Shesuma Ayin, with the open eye, and doesn't say with the open eyes. Lamanu Shesuma Ba'achas Me'einav Haya. He was blind in one of his eyes. In one of his eyes, he was blind. Okay. Next pasuk, we're still not up to the verse that we want to focus on because we're just doing the preamble. Nu'um Shomea Imre'el, the words of the one who hears the sayings of God. Asher Machazeh Shaddai, who sees the vision of God. Nofel Ugoy, while fallen and with uncovered eyes. Rashi says this means that what is nofel gun in Ayim means like he's fallen and lying down. She'ein nireh alav el b'layla, because Bilam's prophecy was in some ways less accomplished than Moses, because Bilam could only see God at night, when he was lying down, whereas Moses could see God during the day, or speak to God during the day. Midrashah, the Midrash is kishaya nigolav, when he would reveal himself to Moses, to God, to Bilam, Bilam did not have the ability to stand on his feet. When no fall upon him, he would fall on his face, because he was uncircumcised. And it was disgusting for him to be revealed, so Bilam had to see God only at night and while he was lying down, because he was an uncircumcised one. And now we come to the pasuk that became probably the most famous psukim in the Torah, one of the most famous psukim in the Torah. And we begin the davening with it. Many weddings begin with the rabbi saying, Ma Tovu Alecha Yaakov Mishkanotecha Yisrael. How beautiful are your tents, Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. Now let's spend a moment looking more closely at this pasuk. Let's see what Rashi says. Ma Tovu Alecha Yaakov Mishkanotecha Yisrael. Let's see what Rashi says. Ma Tovu. Why does he say this? Al Shara, this is what Jeffrey was saying before. Al Shara Pisleim Sheinon Mekuvanim Zu Zemulze. He saw that their tents were not facing each other. That this is a Gemara in Baba Basra 60a. We could look at the Gemara. Maybe Rabbi Yosef could pull it up. We could look at the Gemara, what it's referring to, Baba Basra 60a. That Bilam saw that their tents were built modestly. They didn't have windows and shades in their tents, so they had to make sure that their openings or made discreetly, especially at night. You need some ventilation. You need to have it, but you also need privacy. So that's what he did there. So that's what he noticed, and he appreciated that. Mishkanosecha means chaniotecha, your encampments. Your encampments. Kitargumo, like Unclus translates it. Davar acher. Another explanation. What does Matovu Olecha Yaakov mean? Let's see what Rashi says here. Another explanation. Well, first of all, the Rabbi Yosef pull it up. Okay, let's see. Baba Basra 68. And so this is the idea of how do we know that there's this concept called Hezek Re'iyah. Hezek Re'iyah means that you're not allowed to, let's say, just build something that'll allow you to look into the other people's homes and basically violate their privacy. I mean, I can actually read it from my phone, so I can get the Gemara and read it. But first, let's do this Rashi, and then if I have time,
The Mishnah says Reshut Rabim, yes, but not to each other's private domain. And then the Gemara says, how do we know this? And Rabbi Yochanan says, because we learned it from Bilam that's how we saw.
Yeah, well, I'll get the Gemara after. Let me just finish this Rashi, and then I'll go get the Gemara. Yeah, so it says Devar Acher. Alternatively, what does it mean? Matovu Olecha Yaakov, Matovu Oel Shiloh. How beautiful are the tents of Shiloh? What was Shiloh? Shiloh was a mishkan. It was a tent. It was established in the wilderness and lasted up until the death of Eli, but even afterwards, we don't know exactly. The Mishkan was never destroyed. So it says, how beautiful are your tents of Shiloh. It was in Shiloh for 369 years, according to Gemara in Zvachim 118b. Ubei Solamim, and the Beit Olamim is a reference to the Beit HaMikdash, the temple. B'Yeshuvan, how beautiful were they before they were destroyed? Shemakrivin ben karbanot, because they bring sacrifices in them. L'chaper aleim, to atone. Mishkenotecha, matuvo alach Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Your dwelling places, that refers to af kashen charivin, even when they're destroyed. So this is the key phrase. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob? That's a reference to the Mishkan and the Beit HaMikdash. When they're in their built state, they're so beautiful. But even when they're destroyed, they're also beautiful. Why? Because what are they? They're a collateral. Mashkon is a collateral in the Talmud. So when they're destroyed, they serve as a security for Israel. How so? Korbanon, their destruction, is a kapara on nefashot, is an atonement for the lives. As it states, Kala Hashem et chamato, God expended his anger. V'mekila hayatzet eish b'tzion. So basically, it's beautiful when it's built, but when it's destroyed, the destruction of the temple served as an atonement for the Israelites. And so therefore it was the collateral. It was the collateral. So that's the two explanations that Rashi gave. The first one is the more famous one, but the second one is also equal, it's also incredibly powerful. Let me just get the Gemara and Baba Basra, just because we were talking about this idea. I want to read from the source. Hold on one second. Here's the Gemara. Gemara says as follows. Gemara from Baba Basra 68. The Mishnah says the following. The Mishnah says, "Well, Yiftach Adam." The previous Mishnah had said that if they have two courtyards, hey guys, grab a chumash. There's one right in front of you. The previous Mishnah had said that if you have two courtyards, each owner of the courtyard can prevent the other person from opening up a window. They'll now look into his courtyard. They could stop him because now you have your courtyard. You open your window, you're taking away my right of privacy. So our mission now is talking about a case. How can you do it? Basically, you're allowed to do it if you have you had a right to do it. If you previously had a window there, but let's say you want to. You had one window and you want to move the window. So lo yiftach adam l'chater shutfin petach keneged petach chalon keneged chalon. Not allowed to make an opening. Directly opposite. Basically, you can't make your window directly opposite his window so that you see right into his house. And if it was a small window, you can't make it big. Or if it was one, you can't make it two. But he could do it into the public domain. So then the Gemara says, what's the source for this idea that you can't open a window directly looking into your friend's window? What's the source for this idea? What's the source for this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and this is what Rashi said. Rashi quoted this Gemara. Rabbi Yochanan says, the Amar Krad says, "Vayisa Bilam asanav vayar Yisrael shochein l'shvatav." So we didn't read that. We said Bilam saw. He lifted up his eyes and he saw the Israelites dwelling with their tribes. Mara Rash ein pislei olem kuvanim zelazeh. So that their windows did not open up into each other's. That their entrance to their tents did not open up into the other's tents. Amar haru'uyin awol shetisra aleim shechina. He says this is appropriate that these people should have the divine presence resting on them. Actually, I'm very glad we looked at this because the Gemara does not cite the pasuk of Tovu. The Gemara does not cite this verse of Tovu. It cites the earlier verse of chapter 24, verse 2, but doesn't actually. Everybody says it on Tovu, but the Gemara itself doesn't do it. And therefore, Rashbam in his commentary says he sees them dwelling there, and therefore he said Matovu. And so, but that was the Rashbam. It's not actually the Gemara. That's like a trivia question. You can stump the yeshiva with that question. Because it's interesting that it became famous with the pasuk of Matovu, but it was really the Rashbam. And in fact, Tosfos here says that where does he learn it out? This idea not from Matovu Olecha Yaakov, but from the fact that it says Vatihi alav ruach Elokim. From the fact that it says that the Spirit of God was upon him. And that's how he learned that this was appropriate, that he got the Spirit of God at that moment. Hello, Colby, how you doing? So that's a very interesting thing.
I don't remember Tosfot ever commenting on Agadah.
He does.
Wow.
He does. All right. Anyway, so very interesting. Anyway, okay, so hold on. And then he says the camp of Israel, the Rashbam continues, the camp of the Israelites is like a courtyard of partners, that it was there was no public domain. Everybody was like a partner with each other. So we see from here that you're not allowed to open your window directly opposite your neighbor's window. There's actually Eliezer, this probably is right, contradicts with the Rainbow Gathering, because they're saying you're not allowed to. Eliezer came back from he had a good time. I'm not criticizing it, but I'm saying the ethic that they're talking about here, which is the privacy ethic, that you're not allowed to have your tent looking into the other person's tent, that's against that. How would the Rainbow Gathering feel about that?
There's actually a lot of argument about.
About privacy?
Really?
Yeah, people don't camp right next to me. That's ridiculous.
Oh, people want that privacy.
Well, I got here first, so
They want
let
to
me
dress.
give you another example that's a park. A friend of mine did a movie about this guy who developed the first public housing right here on Benning Road across from the stadium. Where the one distinctive difference from every other previous housing,
Yeah.
public housing in the country was that the windows didn't go look right into each other.
Oh, that's right here. That's our Gemara.
Fact is
Yeah.
that to this day, it's the most successful public housing
Really?
in the country from that era that's still standing today, has not been destroyed. Because when you're looking at your neighbors, you're seeing everything, you're hearing everything, you get angry.
Was
People
the
destroy-
builder Jewish?
Sorry?
Was the builder Jewish? What was the-
No, but he was from New York, a black American from. New York.
That's an amazing story. We got to get to the bottom of that. Because Eliezer, those of you who couldn't hear, Eliezer said that that there's a movie made about a guy who built a public housing on Benning Road, which is where the stadium used to be and there's still a stadium there. And they're building a new, maybe a new stadium. And he said that this is the only public housing project from that era that's still standing. And it's because they didn't make the windows right opposite each other. They made it like our Gemara says that you can't open up right in, that you develop privacy, but also you don't want to like, you know too much about your neighbor. You get jealous, you get angry, you get upset, you get all sorts of things. I mean, there's a place in downtown Silver Spring where there's like a shared living facility, and the ethic is to leave your window shades open. And I find that upsetting.
That you don't have rights.
No, yeah, you don't have privacy. I mean, it won't work for me. I mean, if they want to do it, that's their business. But I feel like this is the way you're supposed to build a society. That built into the society is the concept of privacy. And that's why many rabbis begin their wedding with these words, Ma Tovu Yaakov, because the chuppah is open. The chuppah is open, but at the same time, there has to be space for privacy. You don't want to have too much information.
1890s, Justice Brandeis, Jewish justice,
Yeah,
wrote an article in the Harvard Law Review.
1890s. You're holding, Jeff.
Right?
You're holding. You know these things at your fingertips. It's beautiful.
The question, Rabbi, is what is this is Seth. What is the practical implications of this halachically in that construction's done all the time, including the construction we did on the yeshiva? To like what you should be able to build and people will live next door to each other. Like that's my only general question.
Yeah, so the answer to that is that there's a zoning. The Gemara talks about you have a right to build where you had a right, where you had a chazaka, you had a presumptive right. So as long as it's zoned for that, you have that presumptive right. But if you would do something that violates the zoning, then you're violating that presumptive right. So when people build in like a neighborhood today, everybody who builds there knows the zoning, and that's the expectation. You can't demand more than the zoning.
But the
Yeah.
difference is these are the minimum lots, and these are
Yeah.
large lots.
Right.
What they're talking about here, the tents were very close to one.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, but like today, everybody's like, you have a zoning law here. And if you violate the zoning law, if we would put something up that was not zoned for, then we would be breaking Jewish law because the neighbors have a right. You have different rights. And that's what the Gemara and Baba Bas was referring to. So yeah, and Alan will get the last word and then we'll have a mincha. But a good question, Seth.
From place to place. New York is one of the densest